with us last Sunday? Quite a few. Okay. Well, our topic last Sunday was nature, enjoyer, and consciousness. So this is part 2. But it's actually part 1. Because what we're going to be discussing is the first 13 verses of chapter 13. Nature, enjoyer, and consciousness. And I shared with you last week, those that were with us last week, this is the Sanskrit. So each of a little disclosure about Prabhupada's Sanskrit translations. He said, A and B. Some translators just translate literally, and some translators translate the mood and the message more than just the literal. And I like the latter. So, Prakriti Purusha Viveka Yoga. That's the official Sanskrit title of chapter 13. Just like chapter 10 is in English, Opulences of the Absolute. So it's pretty straightforward. Vibhuti Yoga. Opulence, but it's Vibhuti Yoga. It's opulences of the Absolute. So Prabhupada didn't make a literal translation. The mood and the message of the message is how he translated. So same here. The title in English, Nature, Enjoyer, and Consciousness, in Sanskrit is Prakriti Purusha Viveka Yoga. Now Prakriti, that's material nature, or the translation here is matter, material nature, or matter, Prakriti. And then there's Purusha. However, we're going to hear shortly, very shortly, there's 2 categories of Purusha. One is the living entity, the imitation Purusha, and then there's the capital P Purusha, the Supreme Lord. So we're imitation Purushas in the sense that the Prakriti didn't come from us, it came from the Purusha. So the Purusha is the enjoyer, and we're trying to be the enjoyer of Purusha's Prakriti. We're the imitation Purusha guys. That's us. And so that causes a problem. And the word viveka, very simple. It's with the use of intelligence, one can discern or discriminate one thing from another thing. Sometimes I'm asked a question, what's the difference between mind and intelligence? It's a nice question. Because they're close, they're both subtle, but they're different. So mind is where the sensory data comes. It's like the central switchboard, and the senses are out there experiencing things. Information for the senses go to the mind. The mind processes those things. And the processing of those things is your feelings. I feel this, the cold is too cold. So the senses are sending information to the mind. Or it's something. I like it, I don't like it. Emotions, thinking, feeling, willing, functions of the mind. One more time. Thinking, feeling, willing, functions of the mind. Then the intelligence is the discerning faculty. Like you hear a sound. What's that sound? Oh, it's the sound of the fan. It's the air conditioning or the heating system. That's the fan I hear. Just a subtle fan. But that's where it is. That's where that sound is coming from. It's a discerning faculty. So the intelligence is the discerning faculty. The mind is the thinking, feeling, willing, subtle feature. And then there's the 5 knowledge acquiring senses. So, Prakriti Purusha Viveka, yoga, distinguishing matter and the enjoyer of matter, or the Purusha. So last week we spent time on this nice word, enjoyer. So that the one who owns Prakriti, that's the source of Prakriti, that's the enjoyer. So just like in material consciousness, it's very simple. I'm this body, that's material consciousness. And what is produced from this body is mine. My work product. And then that which I gain from my work is, the harvest in the field, or my paycheck at the end of the pay period, and then with that money I buy things, and that's also mine, because it came from I, this body, and there's I and mine, that which comes from the body. My home, my children, my family, my car, my bank balance, my debts, my anxieties. That's the mind category of things, I and mine. But that's the realm of matter. But when you understand that you're not matter, that you're spirit soul, then it's a whole other set of I and mine. It's just the spiritual set, from which the material set is a shadow, or reflection, or the not real but appears to be real feature of our experience of life. So that's some interesting philosophy. So this viveka, that's making this proper distinction between the Lord and his material nature. So now I'm going to do a little very quick summary of the first 7 verses, very quick, of chapter 13. Oh, something I did last week. I'll do it again. It's called Sankhya. Sankhya? Sankhya. Sankhya means, literally Sankhya means to count. But Sankhya Yoga is the analysis of matter and spirit and the controller of both. Again, matter, spirit, and the controller of both. That's Sankhya philosophy. And it goes in detail and detail and detail and detail and detail. But it's what Sankhya is. So in chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita, that's where Sankhya is introduced, Sankhya 101. It's, we're spirit soul, we belong to the, O Arjuna, the wise do not lament for the temporary, they tolerate the temporary, matra sparshas kaunteya, we tolerate the temporary, and we identify with sat. There's asat, unreal, temporary, matter, and then there's us, where we belong to the category of spirit. And then there's the controller of both, matter and me. And that's the Supreme Lord. That's chapter 2. And then how do you live your life that way? That's the second half of chapter 2. And now, many things happen in between, I can do all what's in between. We come to chapter 13, and it's Sankhya Philosophy 201, or the graduate study, the second level of understanding matter and spirit. So at the beginning, those of you that like, a little familiar with Bhagavad Gita, the very first part of chapter 13, Arjuna asks 6 questions. We're going to go through those 6 questions. But it's matter and spirit, matter and spirit, matter and spirit. He already heard it. Now he wants the graduate level, matter and spirit. So, Prakriti and Purusha, matter and spirit. Kshetra and Kshetragya, the field of activities, and the knower of the field of activities, matter and spirit. Then the next one is Jnanam and Gayam. So we're going to be focusing on those 2. Knowledge, Jnanam, and the object of knowledge. That's in the realm of spirit. That's Krishna, he's the object. And then there's knowledge. and the object of knowledge. So it's matter and spirit. That's chapter 13. So beginning, there's 6 questions, where Arjun asks these 6 questions. There's a little nice diagram of it. And we're going to focus on the knowledge and the object of knowledge of those 6. Here are some statements. This is, those of you that read Bhagavad Gita, you know in the very, very, very beginning, Prabhupada has a dedication page, and he dedicated this Bhagavad Gita as it is to the principal commentator Baladev Vidyabhusan. Baladev Vidyabhusan was a previous acharya, lived in Vrindavan much of his adult life. And he wrote a commentary on Bhagavad Gita, and Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is dedicated to him. So I'm just going to read what he says, which affects what you see on the screen. Perfect knowledge of the constitution of the body, that's Prakriti. The constitution of the individual soul, that's the Purusha. And the constitution of the supersoul is known in terms of Vedic literature as Jnana. Then, that's the verse. Here's his commentary, Baladev Vidyabhusan's commentary. I consider knowledge to be the ability to distinguish this viveka between the 2 knowers of the field. That's the living entity and the Lord. Within the field, there's 2. And the relation of these 2 with the field. Anything else I consider ignorance. Pretty strong. That's what his commentary of what Krishna is saying. Real knowledge is not IT or, something. Science, philosophy, mathematics. It's matter and spirit that control or both. Here's the example that Prabhupada gives in his purport. There's perfect knowledge as making a distinction, this discrimination, the distinction between the painter, the painting, and the easel. So what goes on the easel is paints. He uses the instrument of the brush. He uses his skill. That's the painter. But the painting and the painter are different. And the easel means or implies the paints and the brush. And this is just blank sheet or easel, like chalkboard. And then you raise the chalkboard and you put something else on the chalkboard. There's these 3. Prabhupada's purport. Here's Baladev again. To make it clear, he uses an example of cloth. Though Prakriti, Jiva, and the Lord combine together, there's no mixture of their respective qualities, as the enjoyed, that's Prakriti, the enjoyer, and the controller. Now the enjoyer in this case is a living entity, trying utmost best to enjoy Prakriti. We try, this world is here, we try to be the enjoyer of Prakriti. And then there's the one who is the controller. And then he uses the example of a dyed cloth. How does a dyed cloth make this comparison? Listen carefully. The writer of Vedanta says, that's Vyasadeva, and so he's referring to Vedanta Sutra, na tu dushtanta bhavat. What does that mean? The Lord is not tainted by the material world. That's the cloth, that although the cloth may be put into dye, the cloth is still the cloth. There is no contamination of the Lord like cloth being dyed, though he is in contact with Prakriti and the Jiva. The Jiva, though in contact with Prakriti, never becomes Prakriti, nor does Prakriti become the Jiva. So there's mixing. Three things: the painter, the easel, and the painting. So there's mixing of the living entity doesn't become Prakriti. Prakriti doesn't become living entity. And there's one that's also mixes with both, but doesn't become tainted by their shortcomings or their tininess or anything. That's the cloth, the fabric. Krishna is the fabric, or the basis and support of all existence. This is just getting us into chapter 13 on the item of knowledge. Every living entity's kshetra, or field of activity, is arranged by his karma. Though through the agency of Maya, Krishna, therefore, is not partial, because as the Supersoul, the knower of all kshetras, he simply sanctions the awarding of each living entity's field of activities. It's just diving a little more deeply into these three things, and one of them being the overseer and permitter, Supersoul. He sees everything and he permits everything. Or say it negatively, without his permission, nothing happens. Or with his permission only, something happens. He's the permitter. But on what basis does he permit? In the field of material activities, it's karma. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. You cause pain and suffering for other living entities, pain and suffering comes back in equal measure. You do an act of kindness for other living entities, that kindness comes back in equal measure. He's not partial. If someone has good fortune, someone has ill fortune, he's not partial. He's just sanctioning, resting upon, in material sphere, resting upon karma. So do good work. The materialist that is the aspiring for a higher position accumulates heaps and piles of good work. Punya. More and more and more and more, then they get higher and higher and higher. Do more papa and go down and down and down. So the super soul is not to blame for one going up and the other going down. We're the architect of our good fortune, ill fortune. That's what we heard last week. Those of you that were with us last week. Sadasad yoni janmasu. Purusha prakriti stohi bhungte prakriti janganan karanam guna sangosya sadasad yoni janmasu. That's what we heard. If you want to look it up later, fine. Chapter 13, text 22. That was our topic last week. So now we're going earlier in the same chapter, and the award of good fortune, ill fortune, given by Supersoul, he's not partial. You get some favor and you go to jail. Or I'm going to get spanked or something like that. That's not... We're the architect of our good fortune, ill fortune. And here it comes. It comes as Prakriti. And Prakriti is very diverse. I'm sure you've noticed. It's been cold out. But wait a while. It'll get warm out. Etc. It's a place of duality. And material energy moves through the force of time. And the laws of nature are acting, and they're infallible laws of nature. And we're getting our deserve from our past karma. So that was a quick review of chapter 13, verses 1 through 7. It was pretty easy. And now we're going to go to verses 8 through 12. So he explained what is knowledge. Now he's going to explain the process of knowledge. and liberation, because the fruit of knowledge done properly is liberation. The bondage to the laws of nature are released. Yay. Is it possible? It's possible. It's not everybody gets freed from the laws of nature, because the laws of nature are laws. But one can be excused from the laws of nature by proper knowledge. So let's hear. Here's the verses. Because of time, I'm not going to go through them all. But you see highlighted in yellow, amanitvam, adambitvam. Right at the top of the list. There are three features we're going to focus on the process of knowledge. And then the end of the process of knowledge is liberation, if you do it properly. So, amanitvam adambitvam means, we're going to touch on it last, although it's on the list first. Humility and pridelessness. Say it negatively. Without humility, it's not possible for one to develop knowledge. Say it positively. For one who wants to develop knowledge, the process of knowledge requires humility and pridelessness. Just like, an essential fundamental must be there in place. There's others, ahimsa, kshantir, arjavam. Acharya upasanam is another one. I've selected these because in Prabhupada's Bhaktivedanta purports, he selected these three items. And the third one, Mai Chananya Yogena Bhaktir Abhyavicharini. This is the most important one of all 20 of the items that are in this list. 20 items of the process of knowledge. And I'll point out something before we launch. In the process of knowledge, there are qualities. Here comes the list. And see how they're qualities. Amanitvam, adambitvam. It's a quality of humility, not expecting respect from others. Adambitvam, pridelessness. Dharma and virtue, not for becoming famous. One lives by dharma and virtue, not so that people pat you on the back, but just because it's to be done. That's mode of goodness. You do something because it's to be done. You don't do some forbidden thing because it's not to be done. You don't steal, you don't lie, you don't cheat, you don't do certain things because it's not to be done. You do the things that are to be done. And you do them without the intention. Notice, it's a quality. Without the intent, it's not just a behavior, but it's a quality where you're not expecting something. And when something does come, you don't become proud about it. So pridelessness. So another nice quality or process of knowledge. Ahimsa. Buddhism is just resting upon that one. There's others, but principally. Kshanti, tolerance. Arjavam, simplicity. So, Acharya Upasanam, we're going to hear more about this one as well. Shaucham, cleanliness. Cleanliness is next to godliness. You've heard the phrase? Yeah, everyone's heard the phrase. Stairyam, steadfastness. Atma, vinigraha, self-control. Indriya arteshu vairagyam. No taste for sense objects, which are obstacles. Now there's 20 of these, and I'm not going to go through all 20 of them. So look at the list building quickly. There's 20. Go back to number 16. Mai chananya yogina bhaktir abhyavicharini. Steady bhakti through the 9 processes of bhakti. We'll unpack that a little bit. The processes of bhakti are 9, and there's 9. So the beginning is Shravanam, Kirtanam, that's 2. of the 9. Shravanam, Kirtanam. Shravanam, Kirtanam. Repeat. Shravanam and then Kirtanam. And just by hearing and chanting and hearing and chanting and hearing and chanting, there's cleansing of consciousness and remembrance of what we've forgotten, and then comes the next one. The third one is Smaranam. Third process. So 1/3 there. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. Then comes other forms of activities of devotional service. Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Bandham, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma Nivedanam. 9 processes of bhakti. And the resting upon the first 2, Shravanam, Kirtanam. So a strong emphasis for those who are engaged in the process of knowledge. That's the header on the page here. It's Shravanam, Kirtanam. 9 processes of yoga. So that's number 16. We're going to hear mostly about 16. So here's a nice stairway, shows 20 steps, and guess who's at the top? Krishna. The 3 most important qualities indicated. I'm just making it very simple, what's in Prabhupada's Bhaktivedanta purport. He doesn't use this example, but I use this example. In the middle of the temple room here, we have this nice chandelier. And, chandeliers are nice. I mean, they're attractive, crystal, and it's kind of like a soft light instead of just the direct light, like these headlights at the top, or spotlights from the ceiling. It's diffused light, kind of soft, and it passes, the light is there, but it passes through crystal and diffuses the light throughout the room. And it's very nice, besides it's attractive and opulent and all those nice things. But the light given from a chandelier is very nice. But the chandelier, without that cord that hangs it from the ceiling, the chandelier is useless. It's just a pile of crystal or whatever it is lying on the floor. But it then becomes useful and very beautiful if it's suspended. So it's a metaphor to say, similarly, all the other activities of bhakti, or the process of knowledge, the other 19, are suspended from this one. And here's this one. The process of knowledge terminates in unalloyed devotional service to the Lord. So, if one does not approach, or is not able to approach, the transcendental service of the Lord, then the other 19 items are of no particular value. It's like the chandelier lying on the floor. There's one thing that holds it up, and that's this one piece that hangs from the ceiling, and then it's beautiful. So same, the process of bhakti. Mayi, cha, ananya. Ananya means other. And ananya yogena, there's no other, ananya, there's no other process of yoga than bhakti. And then we're going to hear some more about this nice word, abhyavicharini. You see the word? Abhyavicharini. God is in the center. When God is in the center, that's this piece that holds the chandelier. When God is in the center, everything will come together. So here's our acharyas speaking something about the words in the verse. One should have bhakti unmixed with karma, gyan, tapa, or yoga. Unto me, Shyamasundar. The word cha here indicates that bhakti may also be performed with a slight mixture of gyan or other elements. Gyan Mishra Bhakti, for example. So those of you that like to read Prabhupada's books, and you like Bhagavad Gita, you know from chapter 4, there's a whole series of principles of sacrifice unto Vishnu. Starts with Dravya Yagya, Jnana Yagya, Dhyana Yagya. So there's different processes of Yagya, sacrifice unto Vishnu, and Jnana Yagya, Karma Yagya, Tapa Yagya. They're all systems. But those other systems, in pure bhakti, there's no reliance upon them, rather the other way around. Those are relying upon bhakti. That's what this statement is here. The statement is that when there's the mix of gyan with bhakti, this unmixed type is executed by devotees, and the second one is executed by the gyanis. Now, what does that mean? What it means is, supposing I don't want to be a Hare Krishna guy. I want to be a Jnani. Supposing I want to be a Jnani. For me to be a Jnani, it has to be mixed with some bhakti, unto the Supreme. Yes, I'm interested in Gyan, because we heard about Gyan. That was the first part, the verses 1 through 7. Understanding these three things, matter, spirit, the controller, both. The two knowers of the field of activities. The individual soul, the Supreme Soul, who is the controller of what the living entity does and what Prakriti does. So I'm a Jnani, and I accept there's a Supreme, I accept there's a controller, but I'm not devoted to the Supreme, but I accept there's a Supreme. So there's a mixture of bhakti in my Gyan. Then I can become a Jnani. But then the first is the unmixed, where these other reliances on other things are absent. Now here's the word avyabhichari. Mai chananya yogina bhaktir avyabhicharini. Avyabhicharini means that one should do it daily. Many of us, myself included, we engage in some activity of yoga. Mine is bhakti yoga. And yoga of any type, one of the requirements is every day. I mean, just like you brush your teeth. Every day. Not some days, and some days you don't. Every day you brush your teeth. And every day you do your yoga. Every day, every day, every day. For whatever your sadhana is, you do it every day, because you do it every day. So avyabhichari means it's done daily. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur makes reference to this very learned commentator on the Bhagavad Gita. Avyabhichari refers to bhakti that can't be stopped, because it's done. So literally means without cessation, but at least every day, every day, every day. So out of all, just say it again, out of the 20 items, this one item, the numero uno, the one most important item of all the items, Mai unto Krishna, Ananya Yogena Bhakti, with no other shelter, no other purpose, no other mixture of other types of yoga, just unto Krishna, bhakti unto Krishna, Vaichananya Yogena Bhaktir Avicharini, every day, and can't be checked by anything. Second item in Prabhupada's purport is this Acharya Upasana. Acharya, we know, is spiritual teacher. And Upasana literally means to worship. There's 3 sections within the Vedas. Upasana is one. That's the mature stage of the knowledge which within the Vedas. Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda, and Upasana Kanda. You've heard these terms before? Yes. Karma Kanda, vast portion of the Vedas is procedures for getting stuff you want. And there's Karmakanda section of the Vedas. You want good health, this. You want good wealth, that. You want a beautiful wife or husband, that. You want good progeny. There's procedures to get stuff you want. That's the Karmakanda. Then those that are a little above, there's the Jnana Kanda. We've already mentioned the Gyan topic. And then there's the Upasana Kanda. So at the top of the Upasana Kanda is the Acharya Upasana. Because what does the Acharya do? What does an Acharya do? Acharya gives Krishna. That's the function, the Acharya function. They're representative of Krishna to give Krishna. That's the function. So this is a nice painting. You see there's super soul inside the teacher, super soul inside the student, and the teacher is teaching how to connect with super soul, or how to connect with the supreme soul amongst all the activities of life, acceptance of a spiritual master. And then comes the third. There's amanitvam adambitvam from the very beginning. The beginning of knowledge comes from humility. Here's a nice statement about humility from Rupa Goswami. Many of you are familiar with Rupa Goswami. Some of you may not be. He's on our altar. He's one of the 6 principal followers of Lord Chaitanya. So he describes humility this way in one of his writings. O Lord, no one is more merciful than you, and no one is more pathetic than I. I am very lowly and fallen. O Lord Yadunath, please reflect on my case and do whatever you feel is appropriate. Help. Feeling oneself dependent upon the merciful of the all-merciful. And he's going to do what he's going to do, because that's what the absolute person does. He does what is appropriate. We may think something else is what should be done. Humility means that one should not be anxious to have the satisfaction of being honored by others. That's this adambitvam, the pridelessness. Here's a C.S. Lewis, a book on the whole topic. Humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. And here's Mother Teresa. She always has something nice to say. If you are humble, nothing will touch you, neither praise nor disgrace, because you know what you are. Nice. Say it negatively. If you don't know who you are, praise, disgrace, that's the mind. And the intelligence is to know who you are, right? That's what we heard at the very, very beginning of this chapter. She's a Bhagavad Gita teacher, she just doesn't know it. Know who you are. And if you do know who you are, the prerequisite is humility. And if you have humility, then you'll know who you are. And when you know who you are, and with humility, nothing can touch you, praise nor disgrace. So that's the amanitvam. And then you remember the second word? We're almost done. Isn't it nice? We're almost done. The second one is adambitvam. And that's pride, damba. So pridelessness is adambitvam. And pride is the nemesis to humility. So they go together. Humility and pridelessness. Here's how they go together. Pride, or nemesis, means the inescapable agent of someone's downfall. Nemesis. If there's pride, guess what? Finished. Fall down. Humility is destroyed by pride, and everything good is destroyed by pride. Even if you're good, if you're pride about being good, you'll be destroyed by pride. Or by, proud of anything. Here's some graphics to just explain it all. In the Vedas, there's this couplet, I call it, two things, I and mine. We did it already, chapter 2, Bhagavad Gita. We're doing it again, second time this evening. I am this body. I'm not this body. But if I think that I'm this body, what's mine is that which is in relation to this body. My fill in the blank. My work. And the fruits of my work. And with the fruits of my work, my house. And my family. And my car. And my bank balance. And my taxes. And my debts. And, but it's all mine. In Vedic culture, when someone dies, the children inherit the assets of their father, they inherit the debts of their father. They have to pay, by law, they have to pay. If their father ends as a debtor, it's their obligation, it doesn't go into the heir. So, I and mine. And it's pride is the mine portion. I'm proud of mine because I'm me. What comes from me is mine. So therefore, pride. And pride is really hard to give up. Because we're proud. And it can be our destruction, but we hang on to it. And someone may try to help us and we're attached to mine. And we're proud of it. It's really hard. I'm sure you've all had the experience of having conversation or having a friend or having somebody going through a period of difficulty and they're seeking help, but they hold on to that bag that's down, weighting them down. It's really hard to get through sometimes. Here's Bhaktisiddhanta. Give up pride. The weed that chokes the creeper of devotion. Really direct. So now we're going back to commentary. This is Vishwanath, who is the spiritual master of Baladev. Constant and unalloyed devotion to me is the sole quality specifically for the devotee. All other qualities come to a devotee who exclusively endeavors for constant, unalloyed devotion. That's the Samaya Chananya Yogena message. We'll get ready for an abrupt ending. We're going to end just very shortly. This is from a later verse in chapter 13. Krishna speaking to Arjuna, O son of Bharata, as the sun alone illuminates all this universe, so does the living entity, one within the body, illuminate the entire body by consciousness. A little sharing, because you're a very attentive audience, I'll share something with you. I remember as a young kid growing up in the Hare Krishna movement, Prabhupada saying something that to me sounded really profound, but I didn't understand it. One of those. So he was saying, and not like over and over again, but the soul is both conscious and consciousness. What does that mean? So I pondered it, and said it again, and heard it again, and pondered it. So what does it mean? Then I came across something from the Upanishads that answered it. And the answer is, like a lamp illuminates pots and plates in the room, so also the soul is conscious and consciousness. So picture in your mind a dark room, and there's a lamp, and you don't see the pots and plates in the room unless you turn on the lamp or the light. And with the light that comes from the lamp, you can start to see stuff, differentiated items, because of the light from the lamp. So similarly, consciousness, the soul is conscious, but consciousness spreads through the body and beyond the body, like using this example of the chandelier. I can see the chandelier. I can hear the sound of the heating system. The senses are consciousness extended out into the world around us through the senses and through the body because of the soul's presence. So the soul is both conscious and consciousness. And the whole body is illuminated by consciousness of that living entity. And those who see with the eyes of knowledge the difference between the body and the knower of the body, Jnanam and Gayam, and also can understand the process of liberation from bondage of immaterial nature, attain the supreme goal. So that means there's the supreme. I can be conscious that I'm not, okay, I'm spirit, soul, and not this body. Fantastic. Good start. Now, who's the controller of both the spirit, soul, and the body? We may not know that, but if one can discern, this is viveka, if one can discriminate the Lord who's within material nature, because he's within the heart of the living entity who is in material nature, but he's not implicated by the laws of material nature or the defects of the conditioned soul, the shortcomings, the limited capacity. So one can become liberated even in material life by this process of knowledge if it culminates in knowledge of the Supreme Soul. That's chapter 13. Congratulations, everybody. You're a graduate from chapter 13 Bhagavad Gita. And just keep following that thread and you become liberated souls, liberated in the Supreme. And here's the last slide. These combinations of 4 beneficial things that are recommended. It's connected with just chapter 13. Charity accompanied with sweet words. That means you have some asset. When you give the asset, it's not just I'm expecting some praise and something back. It's an act. It's a genuine act of kindness that accompanied by sweet words. Knowledge without pride, valor with forbearance, wealth with the charitable disposition, which is very similar to the first one. Amanitvam dambitvam. So it's a fruit, the beneficial fruit of the combination of these 4 things is a sign of a person that is situated in knowledge. So I don't know what you're used to here at Naperville Temple for your Sunday programs, but that's my Sunday program class. If you don't like Bhagavad Gita, don't come to my classes. But if you want to understand more of what's in Bhagavad Gita, there's this display. Last week I pointed, because it was still the month of December, we're doing our book distribution marathon and all of that. So many, 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 many. Premananda gave us a number last week of how many Bhagavad Gitas were distributed just from this little old Naperville center, and a lot. And because it's the dissemination of knowledge, dissemination of Bhagavad Gita, at least gives people who don't know to know. Turn the light on, and they can see things they couldn't see when the lamp wasn't lit. And then they can start to see reality, and reality with a capital R, and come to understand themselves and attain liberation in the Supreme. At least the potential is there, because it's within Bhagavad Gita. A careful reader can acquire that asset just from very simple introductory text of Bhagavad Gita. Everything is there. Okay. Well, you've been very patient, and I'm going to end. Let's see if there's some discussion. Yes. Do we have time, Ganga Narayan? One question. Okay. I won't over time.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Thank you for the wonderful class. I am a little bit, question is about knowledge and devotion. In one of the slides, it seemed that unalloyed devotion is the ideal and not mixed with knowledge or something else.
Not mixed with means dependent upon. Say it the other way around. When there's bhakti, knowledge arises. So bhakti is not dependent upon knowledge. Knowledge is dependent upon bhakti. So one doesn't, if you read Bhagavad, you or I or any of us read Bhagavad Gita, we're not cultivating knowledge, we're cultivating bhakti. The proof of which is bhakti increases, not just our information basket over here gets bigger. We know more than we knew yesterday. So that's not our aspiration. Svadhyaya, which is in chapter 4, is one of the kinds of sacrifice of knowledge. But this isn't Svadhyaya, this is bhakti. And there's knowledge, but knowledge that takes you where? Purposefully takes you to Krishna. The bell rang.